Miss Furina, what is the purpose of your Oratrice Mecanique d'analyse, Cardinale?
The Oratrice? It's just like it appears to be.
Ever since I completed the 4.1 Arcane quest, I've been trying to understand what Arlecchino said. Why is someone saving up Indonitium? Is Furina the true Hydro Archon? And what exactly is her curse? To answer all of these questions, we have to look towards the Oratrice Mecanique d'analyse Cardinale. Furina created the Oratrice, a machine capable of determining whether someone is guilty or innocent. It's responsible for making the final verdict in Fontaine's trials, and powering the nation with its indemnitium. Indemnitium is an energy source used to power most of Fontaine, and gets produced by the Oratrice through court trials. The Oratrice generates indemnitium based on people's belief in justice, and it then gets sent out to the rest of Fontaine. And although their identity is currently unknown, someone has been generating large amounts of indemnitium. We will discuss whom it may be later, but how the Oratrice operates is quite interesting. As we just covered, the Oratrice generates power based on the people's belief in justice. Oddly enough, the same rules apply to gods and archons. According to both Venti and Nahida, an archon's power is based on people's belief in them. This principle also applies to general gods, since someone has to be viewed and worshipped as a god to be considered one, regardless of their strength. This is why Nabu Malakata became the goddess of flowers after being exiled from heaven, despite her not originally being considered a god. While on the topic of gods, let's talk about the things Arlecchino said. When the knave ambushed Furina, she noticed that she wasn't in possession of the Hydronosis. Arlecchino even went as far as to say that Furina didn't seem like a god, and she sensed that she was under some curse.
It's just as I guessed in the second before I struck. The Hydronosis is not currently held by the Archon. In fact, this Archon doesn't seem like a god at all. And I sense that she's under some kind of curse.
Instead of disregarding this claim, I'd like to entertain the possibility. But if Furina isn't a god, who is the god of Fontaine? Once again, the answer lies in the Oratrice. As we just discussed, the Oratrice functions similarly to a god, both gain power based on belief. Pair that with what Arlecchino said, and the Oratrice is starting to seem more and more like a good candidate as the god of Fontaine. But even if the Oratrice is the true god of Fontaine, Focalors could still be the Archon. I believe Focalors may be the will and consciousness of the Oratrice, which is why it functions like a god and is possibly housing the Gnosis. But how would the Oratrice be Focalors if Furina is Focalors? Furina might have split her consciousness into two, godly and mortal. After doing so, she may have put her godly consciousness, Focalors, into the Oratrice, while her mortal, human aspects exist outside as Furina. If her godly consciousness is inside the Oratrice, it may be why it makes the final judgment call and can override Chief Justice Nubilet's judgment. Since according to Nahida, Focalors has the right to influence the final verdict.
As Archon, she still reserves the right to influence the final verdict. Anyway, let's just say she's got, a very unique personality.
However, I do recognize that this point requires you to assume Nahida assumes Furina and Focalors are the same but is wrong. But this split may also be why Fontaine's Travail Act name is Masquerade of the Guilty. The masquerade may be referring to Furina, presenting herself as a divine being that surpasses mortal comprehension, but Furina is guilty since she also has the mind of a mortal. Laini also heard a voice while investigating the Oratrice during the 4.0 Arcane quest. The voice Laini heard near the Oratrice might have been Focalors' voice speaking to him from the Oratrice. Likewise, Rukade Vada could be heard at the statues of the seven Andarimansel before she was forgotten, despite it only being her consciousness. But if this is correct, why would Furina want to split her conscience? According to Arlecchino, someone has been generating immense amounts of indemnitium in preparation for something. Even Furina is unsure why indemnitium is being compiled, despite her creating the Oratrice, unless she's hiding the truth. Near the end of the 4.1 Arcane quest, Nubilet says he can't fully force back the Primordial Sea since he doesn't have his full dragonhood.
Couldn't you just use your power to solve the crisis?
None of the currently living dragon sovereigns in the world, myself included, possess our full dragonhood. In any case, I believe I will not be able to do much unless the Archon disappears and returns their elemental authority to me.
In other words, he lacks the power to do so. Furina may have created the Oratrice with the plan of one day generating enough power to force back the sea to stop the prophecy. This may be what we can hear Furina crying about at the Fountain of Lucine.
So interminable. So lonely. Just how much longer?
Furina may be questioning how much longer until it has enough power so she can stop the prophecy. After all, she boldly refuted what Arlecchino said about her not taking the prophecy seriously.
I have my ways, and I've been working on them for all this time. Even if you look down upon me, you have no right to judge me.
What she's been working on for all this time is generating enough energy to combat the prophecy. It was the last message left to her by Egeria, and Furina says that she has never ignored the prophecy, so Furina may have dedicated the last 500 years to finding a way to stop it. But since her godly consciousness was separated, Furina may have lost some of her knowledge. This would explain why Furina doesn't know how the Oratrice operates although she created it. This could also be why Furina tries hard to showcase her confident persona despite being insecure. Her entire plan to save Fontaine is built on, if people believe in justice, and she's supposed to be the god of justice. All Furina may currently know is that she has to keep the people's beliefs up and wait for a sign.
Fontaine will be saved. Even if I still cannot see the true future right now, as long as I continue on as I am, I will be able to hold my head up high.
The real question is whether or not her plan will be ready for when Nuvilet's seal breaks and the prophecy comes to fruition. Thank you all for watching. Although I believe Furina plans on absorbing the power herself, I will pose another possibility. As we discussed, Nuvilet can only restore his full dragonhood if Furina disappears and gives him the Hydrognosis, assuming the Gnosis is the authority. In the end, Furina may pass on the Hydrognosis and all of the power the Oratrice has generated to him, so he can push back the primordial sea waters. But if this does happen, Celestia will most likely take issue with one of the 7 dragon incarnates, restoring their original power. Either way, I hope we get to see Celestia wake up or get active in some capacity. But be sure to tell me what you think in the comments. Will Furina absorb the power the Oratrice has generated and save Fontaine? Will her plan fail and leave the people of Fontaine to try to save themselves? Or do you think none of these are correct and it's something else entirely? If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and or subscribing. I hope you all have a great rest of your days, evenings, and nights. Good luck to Furina.